Hey everyone, welcome to the Fintigrated podcast. I'm your host, Christy Barber, and today I have a good friend of mine here, Matt Warner, who's going to walk us through Working Genius. That's not as it's a personality test somewhat, but it's also a big theory. And so it's just a really awesome way to look at how do you fit in with your own working genius with where you're working. So thanks so much for coming back and highlighting this topic today. I really appreciate
Yeah.
it.
No, I'm glad to be here. Yeah, so Working Genius, a good way to summarize it is it helps you kind of figure out what are the parts of work that bring you energy, joy, and fulfillment. That's your working genius. And then we all have parts of work that probably drain us, and that's your working frustration. So, yeah, you summarized it well. It's really about what gives you energy, joy, and fulfillment. And then the ideal roles or jobs are the ones where you get to spend the majority of your time doing what gives you energy, joy, and fulfillment. Because there's types of work that you could get lost in for hours and lose track of time. And then there's types of work that if we had to do it all the time, man, we'd probably want to quit. So that's where Working Genius comes in, and it can be really helpful for people.
Yeah, there's those parts where you get to work and you're like, oh my gosh, this task, and it should realistically maybe take you 10 minutes, but because it's harder, not fun, you're like 3 days later, I'm still working on this.
Yes. Yeah. And so we'll get into the different types of working geniuses. But one thing to your point is if it's something that doesn't bring us energy or joy or fulfillment, the human tendency is to avoid it or to put it off or to take a shortcut or to skip it. And usually on teams, when that happens, the team can feel that too. And so this really can help teams when you have the same common language around what does give you energy, joy, and fulfillment. That's not to say, oh, I don't like doing emails, so I don't have to do them anymore. That's not what this communicates. But it's good to get people doing the role that really brings them energy, joy, and fulfillment.
Yeah. And I think it's always a good thing to address at the beginning of the year too, as people are making new goals and kind of reevaluating, what they want this year to look like. And so there's a lot I think that comes into where are those areas that really do bring you a lot of joy.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So start walking us through what does this concept look like?
Yeah. Okay. So there are 6 types, and I'm going to show these on a screen. So let's just see if I can get there real quick. Good. Okay. So there are 6 types of working geniuses, and the first one is the genius of wonder. So this is the person who can look around what's going on in the team and in the company, in the organization, and they're not afraid to ask questions like, why do we do it this way? Or is there a better way that we could do this? Or are there some margin here that we're missing? They're not afraid to ask the why question. Or why is it that we do it that way? I mean, could we be doing that better? So this is the kind of person who they get energy, joy, and fulfillment from thinking and wondering and pondering. So if you said to someone while they're on vacation, hey, would you please think about this part of our team or organization, and I will give you a day back in your vacation if you just spend some time thinking about this. And that person would be like, oh my gosh, they could sit on a beach by themselves and think and daydream and wonder. They would be in heaven. So that's when you know you have this genius, if that gives you energy, joy, or fulfillment to ponder or wonder about why we're doing it this way, or is there a better way to do it? So that's how you know you have that genius. However, it's just a question. They're just wondering. They haven't really done anything with it, and that's where the next genius comes in. So this is the genius of invention. So this is the person who hears that question and can go, ooh, I have an idea that I think would solve that problem or that question you're bringing up. So they're really good at thinking through ideas to solve problems. Typically, this person is the kind of person where if you gave them a whiteboard and a marker and said, hey, I want you to solve this problem, I'm going to give you an hour, they would work through lunch because they love the idea, and they would fill the whole whiteboard with ideas of how to solve that problem or that question. So that gives them energy, joy, and fulfillment. But They don't know if the idea is a good idea yet. They just have a bunch of ideas. So that's where the next genius comes in. This is the genius of discernment. This is the person who can hear that idea and knows, like, at a gut level, is that idea going to work, or does it need to be tweaked or modified? So oftentimes the genius of invention and discernment, they usually kind of work back and forth quite a bit until the idea is like fully baked and fully ready to go. A lot of times people might have this genius and they don't even know they have it. Like, if people just go to them in general for ideas about, should I date this person, or should I date that person, or should I buy this car, or should I buy that car, they generally just have a good, like, gut level idea if the idea or the thought is going to work or not, and they know how to maybe tweak it or modify it. So again, nothing's been done yet, but now if the idea has been gone back and forth with the genius of invention, typically what this means is now they need someone who's going to, like, galvanize the troops or get people excited. And so that's where the next genius comes in. This is the genius of galvanizing. This person usually is single threaded in an organization. There's usually like one or two people that really use this genius a lot. That's not to say that other people don't have it, but in a lot of organizations, one or two people usually use this the most. And so usually these people are good at stretching people out of their comfort zone to do something that they haven't done before. And they're usually really good at getting people inspired about the why. That's where this genius really comes in. Though, so now the rally cry or the new vision has been casted, but nothing's been quite done yet. So that's where the next genius comes in. This is the genius of enablement. So this is the person who hears that rally cry, they hear that new vision, and they go, ooh, I can help you get that accomplished. And that brings them energy, joy, and fulfillment. Is we're going to move the ball down the field. Sometimes people downplay this genius because it sounds like enablement, like with addictions. And so
Right.
they go like, maybe, I don't know if I had that one. Well, it's nothing like that, right? Again, these are the people that typically are really gifted at coming alongside people and projects to get it going. But it's not done yet. And so that's where the next genius comes in. This is the genius of tenacity. So this is the person who, they get a lot of joy when that box gets checked off, like when it is done, like when that ball actually crosses the finish line and it gets into the end zone. And you need people who are wired like this, because it's very easy on teams for big projects to get almost done, but it's not completely done yet. So these are the people that usually are really good at making sure things get done in a timely manner and at the level of excellence that everyone agreed upon. So these are the 6 types of working geniuses. And typically people have 2 of these. So 2 that give them energy, joy, and fulfillment. 2 that there are competency. So 2 that they can do, but it doesn't quite give them the same level of energy, joy, and fulfillment. And then 2 that are their frustrations, which drain them. Like, they don't want to do this work too long because it will kind of zap all of their energy, joy, and fulfillment. Yeah. So that's that. Those are the 6. And of course, there's like altitudes with all this, but a lot of times what happens for teams is if you know this common language with each other, it can really help each other out. So let's say, Christy, I'm a WI. Let's just say those are the ones that I tend to go to meetings with. And so let's say you're an ENT. So you like to get things done and you like to check things off the box. And that's what gives you energy, joy, and fulfillment. But I like brainstorming and I like coming up with ideas. Well, what'll often happen in meetings is there'll be a rub for you and I where we'll kind of like, you'll kind of be like, Matt, we don't need you to brainstorm that idea right now. Like, we need to
get this done.
Yeah. And I get kind of frustrated that you don't come with more creativity to meetings because you're just like, let's just get it all done. And so this really helps teams when they have common language around what gives them energy, joy, and fulfillment. Because then I'm less likely to judge you, and then I'm less likely to be critical of you. So this really helps teams when they kind of get an idea of, oh, I get why you're like that now. Oh, this makes sense.
And then it's easy to have that working environment because I understand the way that you think, so I'm not going to be as frustrated because I understand where you're going.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes. And then the other thing, the other way that this can really help teams is a lot of times there's an altitude when it comes to getting work done. So that's what we'll look at. Oh, actually, that's the next slide. That's what we'll look at next is these geniuses tend to work at different altitudes.
Mhm.
So when you're in a brainstorming stage or an ideation stage, like thinking through ideas, you're at that 30,000 or 20,000 foot level. And that's like, let's say the level that like I like to work at when I go to meetings, I'm kind of thinking that way. But you, because let's say you're an ENT, you operate more at that 10,000, 5,000 foot level.
Mhm.
So if I'm not careful, I'll make every meeting I'm a part of about my geniuses, and you'll make every meeting you're a part of about your geniuses. Well, that means in a meeting, we're going to experience turbulence. I'm going to say one thing, you're going to say something else. And all of a sudden, if we're, let's say, at the 30,000 foot level, and then you shoot my idea down, Matt, that'll never work. I'm going to feel major turbulence. I'm like, I'm just brainstorming. I'm just at
Right.
the 30,000 foot level. Why did you bring the plane down to 5,000 feet? That was like way too quick. Everyone on the plane will feel that turbulence. That's super normal on teams. It's very
Oh yeah.
normal to have turbulence. But now we have common language. Now we kind of get it more like, oh, I get why Christy shot that down right away because she's operating at that 10,000, 5,000 foot level. And I wasn't operating at that level when I had that idea. I was at a
Mhm.
higher altitude. So again, this can really help teams, especially during meetings, because now what we can say before a meeting is, hey, this is like a 30,000 foot level meeting. This is a wonder or an invention type meeting. And what can help you a lot of times is, let's say you're an ENT, then you know, oh, I don't like brainstorming, but as long as I know going into that meeting, I need to come with ideas. Now I can do a little bit of work before the meeting and go research those ideas. And now I don't feel so stressed about the meeting because now I've done a little bit of work. I'm not good on the fly, but now I can bring those ideas to
Mhm.
the meeting.
Yeah, and then you kind of get some extra context if you do live in the weeds like that at the lower end of, all right, if this person's dreaming up here and we got all these fabulous ideas, sometimes getting caught at the bottom of too many details is I can see why your discernment person comes in too, because sometimes the folks at the bottom, they're so in these nitty gritty details like an engineer, and they're already trying to build something that hasn't even been decided if it's a good idea yet.
Yes, yes. So the
Yeah.
other thing too, when I work with teams, one thing that can really help is we'll do a team map
Mhm.
based upon everyone's working genius. What gives them energy, joy, and fulfillment? And then on this team map, we'll also put their working frustrations. And when you
Mhm.
see it visually, like their team map, everyone on the team, their genius and their frustration, then all of a sudden you start to realize, wow, we got a team of all enablement and tenacity. The
Yeah.
majority of the people on our team are ETs, you could say. And we have hardly anyone that has WI. No wonder we've been working together for 2 years and we have been never done anything new, right?
Which
That's
is
not
so
like
funny because I had a client last year, and I mean, they're a manufacturing company and they have a bunch of engineers, and engineers tend to live in the details, and
yeah,
it's hard to pull them back out. And that was his exact thing. Is the one of the executives said, these guys, they've been working on stuff and that nothing has happened. Like, what do you guys do all day?
right.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other thing too that's important to point out is that's not like one genius is better than
Right.
the others. Every team needs all of these because the way to think about this is like you're taking an idea and then you're executing it. So that's like the W and then the T. So all of these geniuses are needed. And the other thing to keep in mind is sometimes teams will skip a genius, or the
Hmm.
other way we say this is they'll skip a phase to
Right.
work. If I go back to this other slide here, there are 3 stages to work. So the first stage is what you call this ideation stage. That's the W, that's the I. And then what often happens in teams is they skip this middle phase called activation. And then the last phase is implementation. So what can happen on teams is someone comes up with an idea, they go, this is great. go execute it,
So,
get it
yeah.
done. But a team should slow down. And that's where discernment and galvanizing comes in. Do we need to modify this? Do we need to tweak it? Does this need to be adjusted a little bit? Have we just got so excited and now we're rushing to just do it and we haven't taken the time to really think through how much does this need to
Right.
change?
And I think you see this a lot because even in a lot of books that I've read in the past, it's always talked about the vision side and the implementation side. It doesn't highlight that middle point of, hey, we actually need to discern, is this a good idea to run with? Is it going to be worth our time to put all this work into it? And it gets left off. And you also see the other side of, if you don't have a leader that has the vision and wonder for new things, then the company just starts tanking because there's no innovation that pops into it. It's just cruising along. Well, we've always done it this way. Let's just keep doing
Yeah.
it this way because we live here.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the pro tips when we teach this working genius model to leaders or teams is when you skip a phase of work, that's not good. That's you're going to feel that on your team.
Yeah.
But the other tip we give them is when you skip a genius, what often happens is people will feel skipped. So let's say, one of my geniuses is invention. Well, if we never do invention, if we never think about it, or we just go from an idea and or a wonder, and then we just move all the way through it, but I don't get to use any of my geniuses, I'm going to feel eventually skipped, or that my role on the team gets marginalized or kind of just gets put to a shelf. So for leaders of teams, it's good to keep this in mind. If you skip a genius or if you skip a phase of work, people are gonna feel like they're getting skipped on your team.
Oh,
so that's
right.
a good lesson for leaders to be aware of.
Do you have diving into these just a little bit more? It's technically 3 different sections. Do people cross over sections with their working genius, or do they tend to operate in one of these 3?
Oh, that's a good question.
Would you be a galvanizing and an enablement, or could you be an invention and a galvanizing?
It's not uncommon for people. So I think I have D and G. So they're not always next to each other. Some people are wired, and this is unique, where they have wonder and tenacity. They can be on. So people can have different mixes of it.
Yeah.
It's not always next to each other. It's not uncommon for people to have 2 that are close to each other, but that's not a hard, fast rule either.
Okay. Because you know how sometimes you see patterns with certain job types, and they tend to show up a certain way, and you're like, well, it would make sense that they would be right close to each other versus different roles that maybe it's a wider skill set that's used.
Yes. Yeah. And the other thing too, that can be really helpful for teams to be aware of is there are these tendencies on teams. If you have, let's say, a lot of people on a team that have a certain genius, sometimes you can get stalled on that elevation or that certain genius. So let's say you and I are on a team and we have a lot of people that have invention. So an idea is thrown out, and let's say we're on a team of 8 people and the majority of them have invention. Well, if we're not careful, we will circle around that elevation of invention for far too long because we love it, right? We're just so many of us on the team, we love to ideate and think of ideas. So that's the other important thing is sometimes you have to regulate your genius. Sometimes I might have to go to a meeting and go, I could ideate till this thing is a 4-hour meeting. And it's no, I'm going to have to regulate myself a little bit. I'm going to say, you know what, Matt, I think we've ideated that enough.
Yeah.
I think we've
Let's
come
drop the level down.
Yeah. I got to realize eventually we got to land this plane, right? So teams sometimes can get stuck at an elevation if they're not careful. And so sometimes it's helpful for the leader in the meeting to go, hey, I think we've done that one enough. We got to land this plane.
Do you ever have to strategically put together teams if you have too much of one area of genius?
Say that again?
So if let's say you had a team of 8 and
Yep.
7 of the 8 people are all like invention people, do you
Mhm.
have to strategically place other people in a team to help them land the plane? Or is it just helping these 8 people understand the different altitudes that they need to play in to be able to make a decision or make an idea come to life?
Yeah, sometimes when you're building a team, you might, as the leader or the CEO, realize, ooh, we don't have any D or Gs on this
Mhm.
executive team. And we need to go find someone. They might have a role, like let's say in marketing or product or whatever
Yeah.
they do, but we do need someone who has that D or G on this team, or it could be another genius. And so sometimes there is a lot of wisdom in going, we need to go get that one, or we need to borrow a genius. You might be like on a mid-market team, let's say, but we're having a meeting and we go, ooh, we need to borrow someone who has that genius for this meeting because they would really help us in this team meeting, and we don't have anyone who really has that genius. It's certainly fine to borrow a genius, for your
Yeah.
if it's not a strong one that anyone on the team has.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really interesting just watching like team dynamics. And I've seen even with different projects and long, hard projects too, and how you have to be very strategic in how the team is built so
Yep.
that they can lead effectively the rest of the organization.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's a good way to say it. The other way too, and we kind of alluded to this, is if you're not careful, if we don't understand that we have different geniuses, I'm more likely to be critical of you. We
Hmm.
talked about this in other calls, that there's this thing called the fundamental attribution error, where if I see something in you that looks different, or maybe I don't agree with it, if I'm not careful, I'll make it like all bad, or I'll make it
Right.
about like your character or your intent. So the classic example is like if someone cuts me off on the freeway, like they're a jerk, right? They're a narcissist, blah, blah, blah. Well, if I cut someone off on the freeway, I was in a hurry, right? It's
Yeah.
circumstantial. For you, it's your character or it's your intent. Well, that can happen on teams too. If someone's wired differently, if we're not careful, we'll make them like all bad.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
this really helps teams when you understand, oh, it's not that they're lazy. It's not that they're like not a good teammate. It's just that what gives them energy, joy, and fulfillment in work is very different than me.
Hmm. Yeah, and you start to see that too in certain meetings. You'll see people that tune out and things like that. And it's like, how do you get them re-engaged again into the conversation? Or yeah, I was
One
actually on a
thing,
meeting earlier this morning, and one thing was said, and then the guy just tuned out after that because he just started going right into the weeds. And it's like, wait, 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 we need to come back up here because
yeah,
this is where we got to work on this, and then we can go over here, but not yet.
yes. One
Yeah.
phrase that we use is every person is a six-letter person,
Hmm.
and every job is a six-letter job. And what that means is just because it doesn't give you energy, joy, and fulfillment doesn't mean that you don't have to do it or you don't have to try. I said earlier, well, maybe I don't get a lot of joy in tenacity, let's say. That doesn't mean I get to sit on emails for like 2 months and then reply back.
Yeah.
Like every person is a six-letter person and every job is a six-letter job. So you still have to do these. It just may not give you energy, joy, and fulfillment, but it doesn't mean like you get to say, I don't do that. That's not an
Right.
excuse.
So how does Working Genius help kind of explore what energizes you and what drains you? Like, how do you look at it from the deeper level so when people come into the room, you're able to gauge that?
Yeah, good question. So one way it can help people is sometimes they are in a job that they can do, but it's not the job that they're like thriving and loving.
Hmm.
It's not the job that they wake up in the morning and they just can't wait to go to work. And that's okay. It could just be that the majority of your job is in a genius that doesn't, again, give you that energy, joy, and
Yeah.
fulfillment. So it doesn't mean you're a bad worker. It doesn't mean that like you need to quit your career. It just might be that on this team or in the organization, you're not in the right role. And that can be very helpful for leaders to be aware of. Oh, I don't need to fire this person. They
Yeah,
might
just
have,
move them around.
yeah, they
Yeah.
might have a lot of good skill sets,
Mhm.
but they're just not in the right role. And so that can really help teams or leaders.
Yeah. And that's where a good leader can understand that and isn't so quick to just fire because that's easy in their mind. It's understanding who they are and how they fit into the organization from a really like overplayed word, from a strategic point of view of how am I going to best utilize you? Because, like, to your point, let's say you're the wonder guy and I don't really have many of those, and it's draining for this team when you're on there, but I know if I put you on the Tuesday meeting at 9 a.m., you would just thrive, and so would that team.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's this judgment piece where I can be critical of you if I'm not
Mm-hmm.
careful. This helps. But there's also this like judgment piece that we give ourselves. Like sometimes we're harsh and we're mean to ourselves, and we go like, "Man, I'm just terrible. I don't work hard, or I'm going to have a lousy career my whole life." And it may not be any of those things. It just could be you're in a role that again doesn't bring that energy, joy, and fulfillment, and so it can help with that self condemnation that can occur for people in careers sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
They're just maybe not in the role that's going to give them all that joy and energy. Now, the other thing too to keep in mind with this that can help people is you might have to do certain parts of your job that are not in your genius. Like that's super normal. But as soon as you're in, let's say you're not a tenacity person, like, ugh, that just drains me when I have to go in my tenacity gear. Well, that's fine. Just be aware of that. And then after you've been in tenacity, let's say for an hour, then like do something that gives you energy, joy, and fulfillment. Like be a good manager of your energy. Like reward yourself. If you have to operate in a genius that's not you, make sure you reward yourself later with something that does give you that energy, joy, and fulfillment.
Yeah, it's like what was it? The Pompeido theory. What, remember when that was super popular? You work for 50 minutes, take 10 minutes break, go back to work. And it's kind of the same thing. Go do what you hate and doesn't
Yep.
really give you that much joy, and then let's go replace it with, all right, I'm going to go get rejuvenated again so then I can go tackle this once more later on today.
Yes. Yeah. There's a few other what we call tips that are helpful
Mhm.
for leaders or for teams to be aware of when it comes to the working genius model. And so one of them is the leader's genius will have 2x the impact on the team. So if a leader, let's say, has a lot of WI, let's say that's their two geniuses, well, that'll have 2x the impact. So it would be very normal for those two geniuses then to have like a very predominant role or characteristic on that team.
Yeah.
And that's not bad or good. It's just the reality of it. The leader's genius will have 2x the impact. The other thing that we tell teams as well is, and I said this earlier, is whatever is not your genius or whatever is not your working genius, whatever drains you, again, that's the working frustration, you're likely to skip, procrastinate, or avoid that part of your work. So that's always good to keep in mind. If one of these really drains you, just be aware. I'm likely to take a shortcut on that one or put it off.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. And we're all I'm guilty of that too. Like, even if you look back in like school days, certain projects, you're like, oh, this sounds terrible. And then it's 30 minutes before it's due. Well, I should probably crank this out. Or, even in work, when I had a corporate job or whatnot, different tasks. And yeah, it is. It's really draining, and there's procrastination, and I'm not a procrastinator until those show up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you are doing a terrible job right now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think this happens for a lot of people where there's a certain part of work that again doesn't give them energy,
Mm-hmm.
so they put it off, and or they do it last, right? Or they go, I'm gonna go to this part of work which I really enjoy, and I think that's normal, that's human. But the team often can feel that too, like, ooh, this took them a long time to respond,
Mm-hmm.
to get back to me on that. So this is where your self awareness is really key, like, oh, that may not be the thing I love to do, but I still got to do it.
Yeah.
And my team will feel it. If I avoid that kind of work too long, the team will feel that too. So there can be a lot of great teamwork that can occur for a team when they know this about themselves and their teammates.
Yeah.
The other part, go
One
ahead.
question real quick on it. Do people ever confuse like, well, I'm good at this versus, well, this actually gives me energy in life?
Yes. So that's a really good point. There are a lot of people that we work with that are good at all of these.
Mm-hmm.
But being good at it doesn't mean that it gives you energy, joy, and fulfillment. So
Right.
just because you can do it doesn't mean that when you do it for 4 hours, you're energized the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sometimes people are like I don't know if I agree with the results because there's this online assessment that you take, and because they're forgetting, like, yeah, you might be good at that, but it's not the
Yeah, but
thing
it doesn't mean the same thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is not so much a ranking of like whether you're good at it or not. It's a rating of what gives you that energy, joy, and fulfillment in your work. The other thing too that can be really helpful for people is sometimes we experience burnout,
Mm-hmm.
and burnout, we often assume it with like the amount of time you're working, but a lot of times it's because you're not doing what really gives you that
Yeah.
energy. So burnout could be for a lot of people, I'm in the wrong role. I'm in a role where I have to do this other genius that is just not me. So that's where this model can be really helpful too, is your burnout might be related to something that you haven't thought of before.
Yeah. Well, and I've seen that with a lot of people, and they'll have a job, and it's like, this is just not the right job role as a whole, because it's not necessarily, like you said, it's not true burnout, because it's like I'm not working, 80 hours a week or something like that. It's more so I'm doing all of these tasks that just are draining the life out of me. And therefore I'm not showing up well, and I'm tired. I'm mentally tired from all of this.
Yeah. A,
Yeah.
a good illustration of this is if it's your working genius,
Hmm.
then it's probably like pouring coffee into a mug and it has the cap on it and it stays hot all day long. It doesn't lose the
Yeah.
heat, it doesn't lose the energy. If it's your working competency, those are the two in the middle. It's like putting coffee in a mug without the cap on. Eventually, it is going to lose the heat and the energy in that cup. If it's your working frustration, it means you're putting the coffee in there and it's literally coming out the bottom of the cup. It's not holding the heat at all. It's like it doesn't bring you that energy or fulfillment.
And I
So
think
that's
if you look at the burnout too, it's hard to even be successful in that.
yeah,
Right? If you're continually working on something, you're gonna be drained. And what are those long-term costs and consequences of being in a zone that
yeah,
never ends? And I mean, it's kind of like being an athlete. There's a certain zones that you hit when you're training and doing all of those things. You can never sustain for an indefinite amount of time in one of them.
yes. One other thing that can help people and is this model is really good about like helping people understand like their genius when it comes to being productive. So it's
Mm-hmm.
about 80% productivity and maybe 20% personality. So do personalities play into this a little bit? Sure. But
Sure.
this is
Yeah.
mostly about your productivity. Again, what gives you that joy, energy, fulfillment when it comes to work? Um, so it's mostly around productivity, where a lot of assessments are kind of more personality driven. This is more productivity driven.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you start to see, like, if we go back to kind of talking about when you get those frustrations in the team and all of that, where do you see that the communication, the breakdown most often happens? That the team, maybe they don't understand even where it's coming from, but they're unwilling to maybe address it out of, hey, it's either awkward to bring up, or I don't know enough information yet to bring it up,
Yeah.
instead of just, and I think we talked about this one time before, is sometimes you just need to have the conversation even though you're not ready to have the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. The simple way we phrase that is knowing the difference between nice and kind.
Yes.
So let's say I go to every meeting and I make every meeting about WI, and Christy, let's say you're ET, and I'm in a meeting where I am brainstorming, like, to the 10th hour about all these ideas. And you're like, Matt, the event is tomorrow. Like, we can't re-brainstorm. We can't redo the whole event. Like, we've printed everything. Like, we've got it all. We can't, we're in execution mode. And so sometimes you might need to say that, Matt, hey, I think you're brainstorming, you're ideating too much
Mm-hmm.
now because the event is tomorrow. So let's save those ideas for next year. Those are great ideas, but we're not doing that today. Some organizations, what they'll do before a meeting is they will put in the event calendar what geniuses are really being used in that
Oh,
meeting,
interesting.
so that everybody knows, okay, I got to put my ET hat on today for this meeting. That's what this meeting is about. In fact, some organizations take this so far to say, if someone invites you to a meeting and they don't put what those geniuses are that are needed for this, you don't need to go, which is probably a little extreme.
A little extreme, yeah. That kind of sounds like the Elon Musk thing of how he'll be like, "Hey, if you show up and there's no value, you're welcome to leave."
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's funny.
No, but I think this really helps teams. Again, it gives them that common language. It
Mm-hmm.
helps people understand, hey, everybody's got different geniuses, and that's fine. Are we
Yeah.
using all of our geniuses so that we're really become a high performing team? Are we using them to our full capacity? And then the other thing too, that sometimes people use this, and it can be really helpful in an interview stage. Like, let's say you've
That's where
got
I
a
was just gonna ask you if you could add on that one.
Yeah, you might have a candidate that you love and you're almost ready to, like, bring them on board and sign everything. And sometimes you can use this not in a bad way, but in a helpful way to be like, hey, we really like you. We think you're going to be a good fit here. And we think this role is going to be great. We think you're going to crush it. But I just want to make sure, like, this role is a lot of E and T. So almost use it as like a scare tactic to some degree of like, hey, we would
Can you
hate
live
to
there?
get married and have you join our culture and our team and all that and find out like, oh, this wasn't really a good fit. So it's a good way to just right before you bring someone on, make it almost like a scare tactic. This role is mostly, this genius. Is
Mm-hmm.
this really you? We think you could be great. But because sometimes people interview and they just want to get the job, they're not really interviewing with their genius in mind.
No.
And so that can be helpful during the interview process, is to really make sure that the genius and the role are clearly understood for the company and the person interviewing.
How can you take this framework to, like, let's say your company's growing and you need to add some new roles in the organization? Is there ways to take this framework when it comes to, I need to put this role together and I want to make sure I have the right person filling it? um, can you use this, like, to your point a little bit, well, I need an ET for this, but I also need them to be able to maybe work over here a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for designing roles, this model can be very helpful to just be aware of, are we looking at this role in a realistic way?
Yeah.
Like, this role is probably going to be mostly this genius. So have we written the job description with that in mind? Granted, not every job's going to be only in that one person's genius. They're
Right.
going to need to do all of them. But are we realistic with the job description? And are we really interviewing and talking to the right people?
Mm-hmm.
That would be really helpful, because sometimes we're just so excited about getting the role out there and talking to candidates that we're not thinking through, is this person really wired for this role? Is this going to be the right fit for them?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, are we asking the right questions to make sure that genius that this person says they have, that they really truly have it?
Yeah. And I think to your point on the interviews, it needs to start to be worked in better because, and I've been on interviews in the past, like when I, was looking at different corporate jobs, and you get to the point of, they're just asking one question after another and after another that really don't have much to do with the actual job. It's more they're curious of other matters that, once I got hired for it, I'm like, you know what? Most of these questions they said or addressed has nothing to do with what this role was. And I had one time, and I went to the guy afterwards that hired me, and I just jokingly, I'm like, you tricked me. This job is not about anything that you said it would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this model can be really great for organizations and teams, especially in the interview process, but just also in like, hey, we've been working together for a year. Let's evaluate. How did we do last year?
Yeah.
And how does this model help us like maybe be more efficient? It's not uncommon for teams to do this assessment, take the online assessment, make their team map, see where the gaps might be. And then if people leave that team or that organization, they take it again because anytime a new person comes or people leave, now your team map where your strengths and your weaknesses lie, all that's now been redistributed or changed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a bad idea for a team to do this every now and then just to see where are we at now, um, as a result of maybe people leaving or coming on board.
Do you see people that do their areas of working genius ever change based on how long they've been at the company or if they move into a different role? Or are they more like an innately part of you?
That's a great question. I don't totally know. I think people would probably say whatever is your genius is probably going to stay that way if it truly is your working genius. Um, it might change. I mean, sometimes when you take these assessments, depending upon what season of life you're
Yeah.
in, you could answer questions slightly different. Um, one thing too that can sometimes help people is if you're not sure, a lot of times the people you work with can say, "Oh, I totally see these as your genius. Like you just come alive when you do this type of work." And sometimes that can help people because sometimes we want a certain genius because we think that's going to make us look like the leader or the
Yep.
star. And so that can influence it. But sometimes it's your peers that go, "No, I think these two are yours because I've seen just how you come alive when you do this type of work." So that can
Yeah.
help people when they're not sure. Um,
Yeah,
and I think that's a
that's
helpful piece.
interesting on that. I had a business coach a long time ago, and he did some type of assessment, and he's like, "Well, you're better in this space over here." I'm like, "That's great. I don't want to work there though.
Yeah.
I don't want to operate in this space. I want to do this over here." And he's like, "But you're not wired to do that. It's going to cause you grief in a lot of ways because you're going to have to work that much harder because those skills aren't natural to you."
Yes.
And he's like, if you want to go tackle that, go for it. He's like, you will probably hate your life in a lot of ways. I'm like, that's fine. I know what's best for me. And then I go over that area and I come back. I'm like, yeah, you're right. This is
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's kind of fun about this model is working genius can apply not only to teams, but you can see this in your family. So you might be married to someone, or you might have a brother or sister or mom or dad who have very different geniuses. In fact, there's a funny story of a couple who they didn't have either of E or T. And the joke that they tell is like, "Yep, that's why we figured out we hadn't paid our electric bill. Our lights weren't
Right.
turned on because they were not wired to like always be checking. Like, hey, did we pay that bill? And they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have automatic bill pay. So it was like they just realized, ooh, that's not our strength. And so this can help parents though with their kids because you might learn, oh, it could be your kids may be lazy. That could be it, or it could also be that whatever genius they're not like
Mm-hmm.
doing as well, you're now discovering this about your kid. And so sometimes parents can be harsh, to kids and not realize, oh, that's just maybe not their genius. So this can help parenting as well.
Yeah, I bet. Well, and you see it just in the dynamics of family business. I have a podcast coming about that next week of just the unique things that pop up in those with attitudes and looking at things a certain way and not looking at things another way. It's just a different complexity in a family business versus a regular company where nobody's related. And growing up in a family organization and seeing those different things, I think if my family probably had something like this at the time when I worked there, it would have helped so much. Yeah, just to
Oh
see
yeah,
where we all fall into place. And to the part of being able to communicate clearly, if too many people lived on one side of it, and it's like, all right, well, how do we eventually get to this point over here?
Yeah, I know a couple who one of them is WI and the other one is ET.
Mm.
When they do emails or texts to each other, like they're operating totally differently. Like if someone texted the other one like, "Hey, I'll meet you at the restaurant, dinner at 5."
Yeah.
They don't like put it in bold and remind them several times. They may miss it in the email. They may not even show up, right? And it's not because they're doing it on purpose. They're just operating very differently, and so it really can help families or even in relationships just to be aware
Yeah.
of the model.
Yeah, it's really interesting just like that. I think people are complex, and I think the more we can understand at least parts of it, how much more effective a team is.
Yes.
Yeah, and just like even in personal life too, with your friend group and your family and all of those things.
Yep. Yeah. When organizations or teams are healthy, these kind of models can be like a learning experience, a growing experience, and honestly, almost even a healing experience. Like, oh, I get it now. I get why
Hmm.
that project like drained me, and then even the supervisor can go, oh, I see it now. Like, okay, it can
Yeah.
really kind of help connect the dots for people, and bring out the best in people at work.
Yeah. Because I notice I tend to live in the weeds, and I think some of it's just, the job role that I do. I'm made for that. But it's really funny being in conversations with more of the visionary and the dreamers of they'll start saying ideas, and I'm like taking it right to the weeds of, is this even viable?
Yeah.
What else do I need to know to get in agreement with where you're heading?
Yeah. Or we don't have the budget for that. There's no
Yeah,
way
yeah,
we
yeah. That's
can. Like,
that's
whoa, whoa,
always my
whoa.
one. I'm like, no, 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 no. This is off the table.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we're not
Yeah.
there yet. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, and I'm already like, nope, this is in the red. This will not be successful. And everybody else is like, let's just take a step back. I
yeah.
think we'll be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And that goes to that elevation part. Where are we in
Yeah,
that conversation? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and it's just like how much this can help the team move, efficiently and probably with less bumps along the way when you have that idea and then you're getting it to, all right, now we can execute it.
Yes. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole concept is we're taking an idea and now we're going to, like you said, executing it. So this model can really help teams give a framework for what does that look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
So,
I think this is awesome. I would ask you on let's say it's a small business and they usually only have a couple of people that are even doing this, and a lot of times the owner is wearing multiple hats, and I've seen that they tend to burn out because they're having to pick up the other areas where they don't have a team yet.
yeah.
And I don't know if you have any advice for people in that seat of, it will get better. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the advice I would give that person, maybe if they're one person wearing a lot of hats, reward yourself. If you're operating in a genius that's really not the one that gives you joy, make sure you reward yourself later. Go to that other one that does give you that energy. And then also, as you grow, as you can scale, you want to try to bring in those geniuses that maybe is your working frustration. Bring in someone who's like, oh, that gives them energy, joy, and
Yeah.
fulfillment. If you're the visionary, if you're the idea person, then you want to make sure as you scale, you're bringing the right people on the team that can complement you and can help you. You might be tempted to hire people that think and operate the same way as you because that's fun, but
Yep.
that may not be what your team needs. So be aware of that. It's easy to hire people that are like you or think like you, but that's not necessarily what's best for the team.
Yeah. And I think you see that a lot in the beginning when businesses are just getting started. They tend to hire friends and things like that because, oh, it'll be so fun. We're all in the same place. And then quickly seeing either there's too much of one personality and not enough, or it's a lot of, headbutting along the way. And it's like, all right, we gotta really work and figure this all out.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually had a call about that earlier in the week too of, one of the owners, and it's just like, oh, I hired my best friend to do this and it's awful. I'm like, okay, hold on. Like let's look into this and see what it could be.
Yeah, that kind of speaks to what I said earlier about this model can really help with that judgment piece and that guilt piece that can come with work, where it can be very quick to judge people, and then also we can be quick to feel guilty about
Yeah.
certain parts of work that maybe we're not doing great in. And just, again, just understanding the framework, understanding that there are different geniuses to work can help with that judgment piece and that guilt piece that we often have.
Right. And I think that tends to pop up a lot. And even, I mean, I've had that too. And a lot of it is just I'm being so hard on myself in that instance that then I feel guilty for not showing up how I should.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Again, and that's that whole piece of like, um, they may not be your genius, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you don't get better at it, but you probably need to give yourself some grace if you have to operate in a genius that's not the one that gives you joy and fulfillment.
Yeah. So I got a couple of quick kind of like yes, no, rapid fire
Sure.
questions to
Sure.
kind of pull it all together. So asking you, can you be great at work that still drains you?
So the quick answer to that is probably no. If it drains you all the time, and that's what you do the majority of the time, it's probably going to catch up with you. There are people that probably have jobs where that's the case, and if they were in a job that was their working genius, they would probably operate and excel at a completely new level.
Mm-hmm. How about can a team be high performing and still be unhealthy?
Yes. So that teams like that usually kind of operate with like a hero culture, like they get results, but
Mm-hmm.
what happens behind the scenes often can be not healthy. So it's certainly possible to be on a team like that, where maybe geniuses are skipped all the time, or people are talking negatively about everyone else's working frustration and throwing each other under the bus. So yeah, that can certainly happen where you get results, but again, it's not healthy, and it's not good for people along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And then is lack of clarity more damaging than lack of talent?
Mm. Well, talent is obviously important, but like making sure people are clear about like, hey, how do we succeed here, or how do we behave? Um, those are very important things to make sure everyone's on the same page about. I might value a certain thing about work or about teamwork. And if you don't value that, well, it doesn't matter how talented you and I are, we're going to butt heads if we don't have those same values. So, yeah, you want to hire people that have, are good at their roles, but you also need to make sure we're in agreement on the clarity of how are we going to operate? How are we going to define success? What are the appropriate behaviors that we want to see on this team? You
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure you're clear on that.
Yeah. No, that's good. I would say just kind of to close everything out, what is one tip you would leave people with from all of this that would be the best takeaway for them to start incorporating?
I would, if you can't do the online assessment with your team, I would sit down and think of everyone on your team and think through what are the geniuses, the ones that give me energy, joy, and fulfillment, and what are the people on my team that they would give them energy, joy, and fulfillment. Sit down and even put like a map together and kind of think through where are your teammates, and
Yeah.
you'll probably have some aha moments of like, oh, this explains so much about this team or the people I work with when you look at it from that perspective.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah, I loved it.
bringing this whole framework to life and sharing your insights with us. And to everybody listening, thank you for being here. And if people wanted to reach out to you to learn more about this, what is the best way for them to contact you?
Yeah, they can reach out to me at my email is matt.warner@leadeffect.org, and I'd be happy to walk through this with someone or their team, and you would really appreciate it a lot. It's a great resource.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody.